Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Holidays. This is your January 2024 forecast. Can you believe it? December was slow with Mercury going retrograde, spending most of the month moving backwards from Capricorn into Sagittarius. In January, things starts to speed up. Mercury stations direct on the first of the month. The Sun conjoins Pluto in Capricorn and enters Aquarius, ushering us into the future of innovation, progress, technology, and AI. Get ready to see old structures crumble and be replaced with the new ones. Let's take a closer look at January 2024 and break down the most important transits for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you like my work, please support me by leaving a like or a comment, subscribing, and pressing that notification bell. You also have the option of saying thank you by buying me a coffee. I really appreciate all of you who have been taking advantage of that option. If you want to work with me, if you want to know what 2024 has in store for you, book a reading down below. You can currently save $20 with the coupon codes down there, or you can save even more by getting a recorded option of the 2024 forecast. Additionally, prepare for the year ahead by getting my 2024 astrology planner. There's a link down there for the planner as well. It can help you plan out your year. It includes 225 pages of transits, guides, insights, lunar information, journaling prompts, and so much more. Get this as a present for yourself. So January, right? It's exciting. We have a lot of things happening in January, a lot of kind of new beginnings, a lot of old things completing. So there is a lot of focus this month on Sagittarius, as Venus stays in Sagittarius until January 23rd, and Mercury ends its retrograde in Sagittarius, stays here until January 13th. We also are quite in the middle of Capricorn season. It lasts until January 20th. Mars is basically in Capricorn most of the month, starting January 4th. Venus shifts into Capricorn on January 23rd. So there is a lot of action. Mercury goes into Capricorn on January 13th. So it's Sag, Capricorn, and then starting from the last kind of 10 days of the month, we have Aquarius focus. And Aquarius focus is, of course, the biggest, I think, piece of news this month because it's a big shift. We have had a preview of Pluto and Aquarius in 2023. I still can't believe it that 2024 is like right here. But we did have a preview between March 23rd and June 11th. So if you are worried about Pluto and Aquarius, don't be. Take a look back at those months, see what they were about, what kind of themes came up for you, and maybe explore. So let's take it through the transits of the month chronologically, and then we will break down the most important ones for all 12 zodiac signs. And I work with rising signs. Sometimes I get questions from people asking if it's more accurate to listen for your rising sign or your sun sign. Rising sign tends to be more accurate because it determines where the transits fall for you, where the rest of the planets fall in your chart. So January 1st starts off with Venus squaring Saturn. And this is potentially, this could bring up some challenges. This is also a repeat of early November 9th until 11th, and then November 22nd, 27th, when we had Mercury, and then we had the Sun, when we had Mars, and Sagittarius all square Saturn. So look back at what is the story that you are dealing with. What is this Venus square Saturn about? So it can bring relationship tests, it can bring delays, rejections, restrictions, which are all Saturnian words. Venus likes to have fun. Saturn reminds Venus that she has homework to do. This is not all negative, right? Saturn teaches us the value of patience, hard work, commitment, dedication. So you may have to make some sacrifices if we're talking about relationships, sacrificing your time with your friends to help your boyfriend move or help them file their taxes or something. But it's a commitment or sacrifice that is important for the progress of your relationship or your project. Most exciting thing is the fact that Mercury goes direct at 22 degrees Sagittarius on January 1st. So we are out of the, personally, I like Mercury retrogrades because it's like a cosmic appreciation of the busyness of life. It's a cosmic reset. It's the time to slow down and take it easy and not push yourself extra hard. But Mercury does go direct on January 1st, allowing for things to move forward, allowing for miscommunications, challenges in transportation, technology packages to slowly subside. On January 4th, we have a big shift as Mars enters Capricorn. We'll stay here for 6 weeks, I'd say, until February 13th. Mars in Capricorn is an exalted Mars, so this is positive because we are getting Mars that is very strategic, very hardworking, very deliberate. Planets, when they're exalted, they're considered to be impeded slightly, but in a way that actually helps their function. So Mars in Capricorn is in Saturn land, so it's not the fastest, but it's more strategic, right? Like people born with Mars in Capricorn, and if you're one of those people, please share, have this like very powerful ability to navigate the rules and to take advantage of the system. They also know how to break the rules, but they can perfectly, it's the person that like always knows where to find good deals. Like they wouldn't spend money on something if they know that there is a way to get a better price. And of course, the shadow side could be rigidity or being too traditional, being too conservative. So watch out for that. January 8th, Mercury in Sagittarius squares Neptune. This is also a callback to November 27th and December 27th when we faced confusion. On November 27th, we had a full moon in Gemini, so that sort of had its own energy, its own culmination energy. But chances are with the retrograde, chances are with the squares to Neptune, with Mercury being in its shadow, we have dealt with some confusion. Personally, relationally, legally, right? There could have been Mercury deals with intellect, the mind. Mercury wants to calculate, separate, analyze. And Neptune is not about that. Neptune is like, maybe it's about chilling right now. Maybe it's about like taking a nap. So on the positive, I think this could be the time when the answers come because we have already faced the square twice. So maybe now we know how to deal with confusion. Now we have the resources and the support we need. Like if you are facing some kind of problem, ask a lawyer for help or ask somebody who's qualified for help. January 9th is beautiful. The Sun trines Uranus, Mars sextiles Saturn. So you have this calculated action mentality with Mars sextiles Saturn. You're able to persevere. You want to achieve things. You're not afraid of working hard. And then Sun trine Uranus is really allowing you to express the more quirky, the more unique, the more fun, the more original side of your personality. So it's like a very beautiful union, I'd say, of do what you want, have fun, and also you will get good results because you have an element of strategy to it. On January 11th, we have a new moon in Capricorn, 20 degrees, 44 minutes Capricorn. The new moon actually captures some of that trine to Uranus. So it's Capricornian, and by nature, it would always be about hard work and structures you're building and walls you're climbing. Sea goat, right? The goat climbs like mountains. So which mountains are you climbing? But the trine to Uranus in Taurus, I think, is an indicator that you are not only willing to make a plan, but you're willing to perhaps venture outside the comfort zone. You're willing to work hard to stay consistent and to achieve new things. And of course, take a look at the Capricorn sector of your chart to see where exactly this will show up the most. January 12th, Mars trines Jupiter. After Mars aspected Saturn and you have drafted out the plan, now Mars meets with Jupiter. And this is like, okay, here is the go-ahead. Here is the good luck. here is the sound judgment and ability to take risks and to take risks successfully. I like January. It has a lot of positive energy, and we need that positive energy. Leave the thumbs up down below if you feel like you could use some positive energy after October, November, and December of 2023. So yeah, Mars trine Jupiter on the 12th is beautiful for any professional, business, contest, any competitions, any sexual conquests. Like if you and your partner want to experiment in the bedroom, this would be a great time to open up your knowledge of what is fun, right? On January 13th, Mercury returns to Capricorn. We had Mercury in Capricorn between December 1st and December 23rd. Now, of course, Mercury will be fully direct until February 5th. And Mercury in Capricorn is even more of that, I don't say a lot, but I know what I'm talking about. I have authority when I express myself. I am a leader. I am mature and solid and grounded in my speech. So very kind of practical, grounded, rational communication skills. January 15th, Sun will sextile Neptune. On January 18th, Mercury will sextile Saturn. But January 15th, Sun sextiles Neptune. And that is a day for imaginative, creative, spiritual work. You may feel a desire to assert yourself, to shine light through helping other people, through taking on some kind of altruistic or spiritual task like volunteering or, sharing some of your wisdom with other people. And then January 18th, Mercury sextiles Saturn, which is a repeat of December 2nd and December 21st when Mercury already sextiles Saturn. And that blesses your mind with the steadiness and the attention to detail and ability to get mentally challenging work done with faster times and better results. So quite great for taking exams, for connecting with elders, for submitting paperwork, negotiating, any kind of setting up websites, all of that kind of stuff. January 19th, Mercury trines Jupiter, and this is also previously happened transit. So we had this on December 7th and December 18th. Mercury trine Jupiter is symbolic of optimistic, expansive thinking. We have these themes, right? Like we have these aspects from Mars to Saturn and then Jupiter. We have an aspect from Mercury to Saturn and then Jupiter. Venus will be making the same aspect. So it's all of it is about, here is the plan. We need to proceed carefully and then slowly. We need to be grounded. And then Jupiter is like, okay, but let's open up our thinking. Let's try something new. Let's also have fun. So January 19th on some level has that positive, optimistic, future-oriented thinking. At the same time, we may get too carried away. We may get too excited, over-idealize our plans or over-idealize other people, because the same day we also have Venus squaring Neptune. And Venus square Neptune could be great for like imaginative work and creative work, but it's not the most grounded. This is very much an energy of like going to a party, getting too drunk, waking up with your wallet stolen. So just make sure you're not too carried away. January 20th is a big day. The Sun conjoins Pluto in Capricorn, which shines light, Sun, on the darkness of Pluto. How mysterious. So you can feel, on some level, this could be the time when some secrets come out, when some shadows come out, when you realize the shadow side of your desire. What's interesting, this is happening in Capricorn, right? It's one of our final, I'm not sure if we have one more, but it could be the final conjunction of the Sun and Pluto. We might have one more next year, but not likely. And so this is the Sun and Pluto in Capricorn, which is the sign of structures, which is the sign of tradition, which is the sign of establishment. And on a global level, this could be the time when the secrets or the shadows of the establishment become especially visible, where like we hear something on the news, we sort of, people reach, you know, boiling point. Internally, it could be the time when you realize your own rigidity, when you realize your own barriers, your own flaws and difficulties. It could be the time when you push really hard for something and it snaps back at you, so you realize that you've been coming on too strongly or maybe craving things too much. So shadow side of establishment, shadow side of desire. At the same time, you're also very intuitive, you're also very focused, persuasive, but it's just hard sometimes to get the levels right, I think, between like the volume of Pluto, the loud volume of Pluto, and the solar desire to be visible and seen and sort of the best version of yourself. So beware of that. But I see this as like an initiation point, because see what happens right after, get what happens right after is the Sun and Pluto hand in hand walk into Aquarius. And so Pluto in Aquarius, we had, like I mentioned, you know, we had a preview of that between March and June 2023. And that was the time when the talk of meta and technology and like kind of developments in AI have been the loudest. And then it subsided a little bit when Pluto returned into Capricorn in mid-June. And so now we are going back to it. We are, after the Sun-Pluto conjunction, we are realizing that something is outdated and we are ready to rebuild. Pluto in Aquarius will, of course, highlight the new chapter in your chart. It will bring attention to the Aquarius sector of your chart. It will initiate very slow burning change. It's like, you know, the water is boiling very slowly. So Pluto in Aquarius will make us face shadows. It will potentially bring up excitement about new developments, but it's also, you know, there's no Pluto without shadows and fears. So like fears of technology, fears of robots, fears of aliens, all of that stuff can be like coming up. And I will make a separate video on that and some other important transits. But this is Pluto almost fully in Aquarius, right? Pluto stays here until January 1st. It will dip out of Aquarius for a couple more months and then return. So we will have Pluto in Aquarius pretty much until 2043. So it's a big transition. January 23rd, Venus enters Capricorn, stays here until February 16th. Venus in Capricorn is conservative, steady, loyal, interested in building relationships. Maybe more, you may experience that you suddenly start to be more attracted to older people, to people with more authority, to people with more power. January 25th, we have the full moon in Leo in a square to Jupiter. And this one happens at 5 degrees Leo and completes the cycle started on August 16th with the new moon in Leo. Full moon in Leo is the time to remember that you too have value, that you too deserve success and recognition, because chances are with the Aquarius season, a lot of focus could be on society and other people and the needs of community. And so full moon in Leo brings spotlight to you and encourages you to ask for what you deserve, to express your royal energy, even if you're doing so with the intent of benefiting other people. But definitely some kind of important culmination. On January 27th, the Sun squares Jupiter, and that is, you know, that energy that showed up with the full moon, so it lasts between January 25th, 27th. And Sun square Jupiter is like fun, optimistic, but you may be too boastful, or you maybe, once again, you may have that tendency to overdo things. So be careful of that. Uranus goes direct on January 27th, allowing us to bring into the external world all of the internal changes we have been experiencing. So allowing us to innovate externally, while maybe in the last few months, while Uranus was retrograde, we could have felt like a lot of inner restlessness and readiness for change, but didn't quite know how to make things happen. We also have same day, January 27th, Mercury conjunct Mars. Similar energy, we had this aspect on October 29th and December 27th. Mercury conjunct Mars is, here we're dealing with exalted Mars and Mercury in Capricorn. Here you feel very driven to speak, and you may not hesitate to express your true feelings. You may feel more willing to get in debates. This is actually quite good if you are on a debate team, for example, or it's a good time to also express competitive energy, engage in some kind of sport or some kind of competition. January 28th might be my favorite day. All months we have Venus sextile Saturn, Mercury trine Uranus, Venus trine Jupiter. So powerful, open-minded, innovative thinking and new possibilities for relationship expansion and commitment. Great for creative projects, great for figuring out, fine-tuning your creative projects, potentially opportunities in love and business, and success making financial decisions, making investments, investing into art, and also networking, or like I said, dating. And January 29th, Mars trines Uranus. So here the warrior gets a chance to play with some new fun toy. So you're getting to act in perhaps a unique way. You're getting to innovate. You're getting to express yourself. This could be as simple as like trying a new piece of equipment at the gym and working out a new muscle, to something that's more complicated, which would be starting a business in childcare, which is something that you haven't thought about. So this is a bird's eye view. We actually covered pretty much all of the big transits, even some smaller ones, of January. And now let's talk about each individual sign. If you'd like to know what January has in store for you personally, you can become a subscriber on my website and get monthly horoscopes emailed to you. Don't forget to take advantage of the current deals for 2024 readings and find out what is ahead for you, what kind of important themes and important events can be happening for you. So I'm just going to take a sip of my tea and we'll dive in. Starting with Aries rising, as always, in December, there was a lot of focus on your house of travel, education, writing, and publishing. So maybe you've gone on trips, maybe you've studied something new. There was also a lot of focus on your professional life and on agreements with other contracts with others, as we had, Mercury in Capricorn, as well as Venus in Scorpio. Both are highlighting your professional houses and the houses of partnerships. In January, you're still very much continuing to deal with the topics of travel. So maybe you are getting away. You're very professionally oriented still. And there might be some breakthroughs in your house of friendships, connections, your role in the collective as the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius on January 20th. So I will break these down in a second in depth, but you can, all of this thinking about your beliefs, about your career, about your values and how you see yourself tied with others can result in a new role, a new vision that you have, like exciting possibilities of tying yourself to other people and maybe getting more involved with the collective. So the month starts off with Mercury going direct on January 1st in Sagittarius, your 9th house. So Mercury started its retrograde in mid-December, December 13th, and it retrograded from Capricorn, your 10th house, into Sagittarius, your 9th house. And maybe you have looked at your career and figured out that it doesn't quite serve your beliefs. It doesn't quite reflect what you're seeking. It doesn't quite reflect your ideology. And either you are going, Mercury goes direct in the house of education. So maybe you are figuring out that you need to take some extra classes, pass some exams, take some exams, or you are just sort of reflecting on your beliefs and realizing that your professional life needs to change. Venus is in Sagittarius, your 9th house, until January 23rd, and this is very much pleasurable for travel. This is great for dating foreigners, for exploring sexual teachings, and maybe learning about Tantra or other things. You may experience some tests romantically on January 1st and then January 19th, as Venus squares Saturn and then Venus squares Neptune, which will, Venus is in the 9th house, so she's in the house of travel, education, growth, expansion, legal matters. And the squares to Saturn and Neptune on the 1st and 19th can indicate maybe some outside forces you're facing, something that is slowing, or something that is affecting your adventure, if something that's affecting your trip that you're on or your education progress. And the invitation here is to recommit and to face some illusions you might be having so that you can find more clarity in this part of your life. Mars enters Capricorn, your 10th house, on January 4th, joining the Sun. Mercury also joins Capricorn, joins Mars and the Sun on the 13th, and so does Venus on January 23rd. So this speaks to a very high focus on your professional life this month. Mars is your chart ruler, so Mars going into the 10th on January 4th is a sign that perhaps your travels are done, if you have been traveling, or just that there is a lot of fights to do, there's a lot of action to take. It's an exalted Mars, so it's a strong Mars, and you get this Mars for about 6 weeks. So this is very much the time of professional focus and professional progress. And we get a new moon in your 10th house on January 11th. And the new moon actually comes like right after January 9th breakthroughs, because on January 9th you have the Sun in your house of career, trining Uranus in the house of money, and Mars in the house of career, aspecting Saturn in the house of spirituality, mental health. And then there's a new moon on the 11th that is also trining Uranus in the 2nd house of money and values. So you're starting a new professional chapter. And for some, it's not going to be professional in a sense that it's related to the job. It could also be more about your skills and your desires, and once again, your role in the collective. But the trine to Uranus in the 2nd house suggests to me an opportunity to reinvent the way you make money. There might be breakthroughs around money. There might be exciting new opportunities. The sextile to Saturn from Mars is also suggestive that you're bringing in some of the imagination, you're bringing in some of the spirituality, you're bringing in some of the healing, or you're just looking to relax a little bit more. You are figuring out that this work that you're doing right now is perhaps not fulfilling on a spiritual level. So you're getting ready to reinvent your career, to start new things, and a lot of it like is not just about money, right? Like a lot of it is about your shifting values, your priorities that are transforming. And yeah, I wonder with the 12th house if you are entering a period where you're becoming more spiritually aligned, or you're becoming more somehow independent, or you're kind of shifting behind the scenes and doing work that is allowing for more inner fulfillment and also for more outer growth. On January 20th, we have the Sun conjoining Pluto in Capricorn, your 10th house. So this is another indicator of some kind of shadows coming up professionally. Maybe January 20th is the time when you see that you can no longer work in the environment you're in. It could also be the time when you feel more driven to succeed and you're perhaps trying to push harder and get some kind of pushback. Watch out that you're not sort of, pushing too hard. But I think it's like, to me, whatever it is, it's a very important insight time whether it means that you're realizing that something doesn't work, or you're realizing what works and what needs to be brought into the light, right? Because immediately on January 20th, the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius, your 11th house of friendships, networks, collectives, your role in the environment, and your role in the world. And you're bringing in, or you're more interested in connecting with different people. You're more interested in, whether that means you're reaching out to them for work recommendations or for professional advice, or if that means that you are starting to ask questions: how do I fit in the world around me? How can I help other people? How can I share with other people? Pluto in Aquarius is a repeat of March 23rd, 2023 until June 11th, 2023. So take a look back, share down below what you remember was happening in your friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams. Was anything new being born? Were any seeds planted? This is a very long transit, right? Pluto in Aquarius is pretty much like a 20-year long transit. I mean, we're still only dipping our toes into the Aquarian pool. But I can see, I can see you over the course of the next 20 years becoming a lot more important and the way you relate to other people. Maybe you're venturing on social media. Maybe you're gathering people around you. Maybe you're finding people who are more aligned with your inner dreams. Maybe you're starting a charity organization, volunteering, and transforming your connections. Of course, Pluto in the 11th house can also bring up shadows around friendships. So if there are any friends who are jealous of you or not supportive of you, this could also be the opportunity to clear the air and perhaps set some of those friendships free, let some people go. On January 25th, we have a full moon. The urge to sing "Let Some People Go" is just so strong. So on January 25th, there's a full moon in Leo, your 5th house. This is a completion of a chapter that started in mid-August when we had a new moon in Leo, which would have planted the seeds. And it can bring changes around love, around your children, around your creative projects, and pleasure. So take a look back and see if you have started any projects, if you have started dating someone. If you have also been asking, that would have been like the middle of Venus retrograde. If you were curious about what brings you pleasure, perhaps now you find it. Perhaps now you realize what you want to be doing creatively, what is satisfying to you, and the goal here is quite strong to have fun. But be careful that you're not overdoing it, because there's a square to Jupiter in your 2nd house, and desire to spend too much money can be very strong. So be careful there. Finally, on January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 2nd house, promising opportunities for clear financial change and progress, more external change after all the internal questions you've asked and things you have hashed out and asked yourself about. And if you'd like a personal horoscope, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, to receive written horoscopes at the start of every month. And check out my discounted readings, discounted horoscopes for 2024. You can get a live conversation with me at a cheaper price, or you can purchase a recorded reading in the shop section of my website. Links down below. Taurus rising, Happy New Year. In December, you were dealing with a lot of financial questions as the Sun and Mars travel through Sagittarius. You may have potentially reinvested, needed to rethink your finances, maybe in connection to education, maybe in connection to travel, writing, publishing. There could have been some kind of shuffling of money, or even questioning some of the agreements you have with other people, taking care of some debts, trying to figure out how you can get more from the job that you have or from a relationship or partnership that you're involved in. And there was a lot of romantic focus with Venus in Scorpio. In January, you're still continuing to deal with the question of money, values, beliefs, and philosophies. And there might be some professional breakthroughs and changes as the Sun and Pluto leave Capricorn and enter Aquarius. So maybe you're gearing up for professional changes or the change of status. Forgive me. So the first thing that happens in January, we do start off with a more challenging transit as Venus in Sagittarius, your 8th house, squares Saturn. And you are ruled by Venus, so you may feel that one stronger, and that could be the time when you want to have fun, but there is some kind of duty to your friends, there is some kind of obligation you have, or even a sense that, you know, maybe you're feeling like it's new beginnings, it's the start of the year, and you're ready for a new start, but there is something that is very Saturnian that is standing in your own way. Luckily, we also have Mercury going direct on January 1st in your 8th house. So if you have been looking at resources, if you have been looking at people, agreements, connections, and not quite clear how to get things organized, Mercury going direct on the 1st could bring insights and progress when it comes to contracts, when it comes to paying off debts, when it comes to getting a mortgage or a loan or any resources you need. It can also be, maybe it's the time when you consult a financial advisor or come up with a better strategy in your relationship, in your joint bank account, even in the way you approach matters like education, travel, career, writing. And, you know, I am talking about resources, but 8th house a lot of times also represents like healing and maybe addressing fears. And so facing things that have been holding you back could be quite important here. Venus, your chart ruler, is in Sagittarius, your 8th house, until January 23rd. And that is quite supportive of sharing. It could be very helpful to your partner. Venus in the 8th house could be the time when your resources are getting a boost, when you are your partner's resources are getting a boost, like they're getting a raise or they're getting some kind of influx of money, and then you're benefiting through them. And of course, Venus in the 8th house could also be a sign of you getting a bonus, you getting some kind of help from the bank, like a loan forgiveness, or even something small, right? Like you get like free pastries somewhere. So like Venus in the 8th house is the time of when other people can be more generous with their resources with you. Like I said, January 1st can be challenging, and so can January 19th as Venus squares Neptune. But if you stay patient, if you stay grounded, you can figure things out and perhaps just even learn how to handle problems with more determination and calmness. You're capable of that, Taurus rising. I know it. You have that persistent Taurian nature. Who if not you? January 1st can also be quite similar to November 9th, 11th, and then November 22nd, 25th, when we had Mercury, the Sun, and Mars square Saturn. So take a look back and let me know down there if you remember those days being difficult. Mars enters Capricorn, your 9th house, on January 4th, joins the Sun. Mercury sort of rolls around and enters Capricorn on the 13th. And then Venus, your chart ruler, enters Capricorn on January 23rd. So this is another really big place of focus this month. And here we're looking at your 9th house. So the questions of travel, the questions of education, questions of growth, right? Like 9th house is classically connected to travel, education, law, writing, publishing, but it's also the place of beliefs and philosophies. It's the place where you are gathering knowledge, gathering resources, gathering kind of courage to take action. So Mars being here could definitely invite you to study more, to book trips, to maybe handle some legal matters, because Mars will be exalted in Capricorn, so you can be a lot more strategic about, you know, this is what I want, ABC, let me write it out. Writing could be benefited right now. And yeah, like if you are in any legal battles, this could be the time to take proactive action. And then we also get a new moon here on January 11th, right on the heels of January 9th, Sun trine Uranus, Mars sextile Saturn. So the new moon on January 11th also trines Uranus, connecting your house of self with the house of education, travel, legal matters, beliefs, philosophies, education. I may have already said education, double education. And this new moon is a sign of growth. It's the sign of growth, and the trine to Uranus in the first, and the previous Mars in the 9th sextile Saturn in the 11th is very much connection of you and the changes you're going through, and perhaps new beginnings in your life that involve teaching, that involve traveling and having a travel agency, or that involve sharing your knowledge through some kind of publication, whether that means you're writing a book, or you're teaching a yoga class, or you are starting a podcast, or you're just starting to journal to figure out who you are and what you believe in. There is also, I think, like a very strong energy with this new moon of finding people who are like-minded, because the sextile between Mars and Saturn that is still active around this time is very much like, I want to take action to connect my beliefs with the community, and becoming a leader in the community, or becoming a friend, looking for support, connecting with other people is very kind of strongly shining through this new moon. January 20th is big. We first have the Sun conjoined Pluto in Capricorn, your 9th house. So that to me is an indicator of you gaining some insight and clarity about what needs to be changed and what needs to be transformed. Maybe it's some outdated beliefs. Maybe it's some doubts you have about your place in the world. Maybe it's some outdated kind of legal agreements, or a belief that you have of yourself just being a student and like doubting your knowledge. So the Sun conjunct Pluto could also be the time when there are some secrets coming out in the education sector, or some, shadows, disagreements, kind of. I think to me this just feels like your beliefs get exposed, and the shadows and the negative beliefs, you become kind of more clear on maybe what needs to be released versus what needs to be built up more. And your focus on your inner power becomes stronger too, because the Sun conjunct Pluto in the 9th could also be about like, okay, I want to be a teacher. Here's how I'm going to get there. And then immediately after, on January 20th, the Sun enters Aquarius, your 10th house, and so does Pluto. And Pluto has dipped its toes in Aquarius between March 23rd and June 11th, 2023. So take a look at what was happening in your professional life at the time. Has there been any seeding of new ideas, of rediscovering or discovering your personal power? Because this Sun-Pluto transit together is a sign of change, and you're feeling ready for change in your professional life. Of course, Pluto in Aquarius is a 20-year-long transit. Pluto stays in Aquarius until September 1st this year, then sort of steps away for a couple of months and then returns and stays in Aquarius until 2043. So it's a very long transit, and it will invite you to examine fears you have professionally. Pluto in the 10th is very much like power behind the throne energy. It can boost your confidence, or it can boost your desire. Let's say like the desire to achieve things, the desire to find success, the desire to find fame and visibility, or to find a position that lets you be in charge but not be exposed. Pluto in Aquarius could also bring up some shadows around work, like some of your dirty laundry can be aired, so stay high-minded. Once again, if you feel so hungry for power at this time, do not do things you will later regret. We live in this cancel culture. Your tweets can come out and people will find out. So be sort of clean and nice and kind. But know that you are on the precipice of some important professional changes. Pluto moves slowly, so it's not the fastest change, but chances are the next 20 years will see you go through a lot of professional deaths and rebirth. On January 25th, we have the full moon in Leo, your 4th house. This completes the chapter that got started in mid-August. We did have a new moon in Leo, in your house of home and family. Venus was retrograding in your house of home and family. So if around that time you have started some kind of renovation project, if you have started building new relationships with your family members, this could be the time when those projects complete. Maybe when you make a move, maybe when you rebuild your home to allow for more fun and pleasure and joy. You may also be quite around this time kind of interested in finding acceptance by the family and finding a better, happier relationship. There is a square to Jupiter at the same time in your first house, so watch out for being too boastful, proud, and maybe like taking things too far. Just like be mindful of that my way or the highway attitude. And then on January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your first house, suggesting that the inner changes, the inner thinking and work and the reviewing of your values that you have been doing in the last few months is now getting ready to show up externally and to become more visible. So you're getting ready to reinvent your look, reinvent your personality and your style, and assert yourself in the outside world. And if you'd like to know what the rest of January, what other transits mean for you, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and get your 2024 horoscope at a discounted price until the end of January. You can also pick up a recorded 2024 reading and save even more in the shop section of my website. Happy New Year, Gemini risings. In December, you were busy handling relationship matters with the Sun and Mars in your 7th house. There could have been a lot of focus to resources, agreements, and interactions, as well as ties you have to others, as you potentially been really focused on renegotiating, rethinking those agreements. And you may have handled health matters, maybe try to improve your health and, kind of get yourself feeling better. My Gemini rising friend definitely had a pretty rough November and a little bit of December, like health-wise. So, in January, you're still continuing to deal with relationships, you're still continuing to deal with agreements and maybe thinking of which ones are fair, which ones aren't, as well as you can experience some breakthroughs and some changes in the sector of education, travel, writing, publishing, and some beliefs transformations as the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius on January 20th. So let's go for a deeper look at January and at some of the most important transits. So we start off with Mercury going direct on January 1st in your 7th house. And like I said, if in December you have dealt with some kind of relationship, negotiation, contract related uncertainty, having Mercury go direct could offer you insights and could be suggestive of forward momentum and more progress in the sector of relationships, partnerships, contracts, and agreements. So maybe you're finally coming to understanding. If you're one of the Gemini risings who dealt with exes coming back into your life during the retrograde, this might be the period where you're a Gemini rising, you're Mercury ruled, so the retrograde is more important for you than, let's say, for Sag rising. But if you dealt with exes coming into your life, this could be the clarity and the understanding that comes to you when you're like, okay, I don't need this noise. Or maybe you do. Maybe you figure out how to make the relationship move forward, right? How to solve the issues you've been facing. Venus is in your house of love and business and partnerships until January 23rd. So you're very romantically focused. It's Venus that can bring the partner. It can also inspire a better period in your partner's life and easier, happier relationships. Of course, it's not without tests. January 1st and January 19th can bring some frustrations connected to work that are affecting your relationships, maybe delays, maybe responsibilities that you need to attend to, and things that maybe require sacrifice. So make sure you're finding that good balance between your love life or your personal commitments, your business, and your professional life or demands of your bosses. It could be those 2 days, January 1st and 19th, can be quite complicated, and they will ask you to recommit and even face some illusions, right? Like, ask yourself what's realistic. Are you spreading yourself too thin? Was Venus in Scorpio in December telling you that you need to rest a little bit? Another big place of focus for you this month is your 8th house of shared resources, of obligations, and connections to other people. Mars enters Capricorn on January 4th. The Sun is here until January 20th. Mercury comes in on the 13th, and then Venus enters Capricorn on the 23rd. So it's like a busy, busy place for you. And you maybe are handling some financial matters, quite literally. Maybe you're being very proactive, paying your taxes off, paying some debts. Maybe you are renegotiating your contract for 2024 or starting some kind of big partnerships. We do have a new moon here on January 11th, which is a sign of new beginnings. And the new moon trines Uranus in the 12th house. Shortly after January 9th, when the Sun trined Uranus, and Mars sextiles Saturn in the 10th. So very much like new beginnings in relationships that perhaps offer freedom. The trine to Uranus in the 12th makes me feel like you are very interested. You're sort of almost more interested in letting something go potentially, or you're interested in making changes to your relationships and partnerships and even career that allow more spirituality, that allow more imagination, that allow more rest, right? And then the new beginning in the 8th house could be the opportunity to trust your partner to help you, or an opportunity to invite some help into the mix, or an opportunity to step away from the old contract and release something outdated. And when I'm talking about contracts, 8th house is very much like physical, literal contracts, as well as agreements you have with other people, where maybe your neighbor expects you to be at their call when they need you to help them walk their dog or something, and you feel like that's sabotaging your life because you're waiting or something like that. You know, it's interesting. There might also be financial rewards around January 9th, 11th, because it is your 8th house, and opportunities to renegotiate, to change your finances, and to maybe get more resources, insights, opportunities coming to you from other people. January 20th is really big. We have the Sun conjunct Pluto in Capricorn in your 8th house. And Sun conjunct Pluto, Sun is light, Pluto is shadows, so shining light on shadows in the sector of money and values. Fears is likely. 8th house is the place in which we are, on some level, always afraid of something happening to us. It's also the place of give and take dynamics with other people. So Sun conjunct Pluto can reveal outdated dynamics. It can reveal fears you have that need to be released, especially when it comes to like lacking or not having enough, especially when it comes to being afraid to speak up and express yourself. Any kind of value that you place on other people and relationships in which you allow other people to define you will need to be examined and transformed. And of course, same day, January 20th, the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius, your 9th house, suggesting some kind of slow burning need for change. Aquarius is a very innovation-oriented sign, very progress-oriented sign, very like technology-savvy sign. So here you're looking at the sector of education, travel, law, writing, publishing, and you're rethinking your role. You are perhaps moving from the 8th house of depending on other people to setting yourself up to be an educator, or setting you up to be an influencer. You're sort of getting ready to market yourself differently, to publish your work, to assert yourself in that realm of education, travel, writing. Perhaps you're becoming an author or a teacher or a travel influencer. Take a look back at March 23rd into June 11th, 2023, when Pluto first dipped into Aquarius. What kind of ideas came into your life? What projects have you been working on? What kind of sparks have been kind of germinating within you? Please let me know down below. And I'm excited for you, Gemini risings. On January 25th, we have a full moon in Leo, your third house. This could suggest taking an exam that you've been studying for. This can suggest changes to your schedule, maybe changes around commute you're taking, because third house is like everyday commute. And it also completes the cycle that started on August 16th with a new moon in Leo. So anything, any kind of projects that you were working on, any blogs or writing or classes you were taking around the time of the full moon could be the time when you're like, okay, this is the time to put the period in this writing project. This is the time to publish my work. This is the time to take an exam. And this is the time to also maybe take action with your business or celebrate how much you've come in the last 6 months. And finally, on January 27th, Uranus goes direct in the 12th house, providing opportunities for outer change in the sector of foreign lands. 12th house represents isolation, so sometimes it represents foreign lands by being, like when you're far away, you feel like a foreigner, right? So transformations in the house of travel, in the house of spirituality, in the house of mental health, and in the house of freedom from the material restraints. So I think quite a significant transit after Uranus has been retrograde for the last few months. And if you'd like to know what January has in store for you, what the rest of the transits mean, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. And you can currently get a discounted 2024 forecast and save even more if you pick up a recorded version of the 2024 forecast in the shop section of my website. Links and coupon codes down below. My lovely Cancer risings, Happy New Year, Happy 2024. In December, you were dealing with health and work matters. Maybe you felt quite busy with the Sun and Mars in your 6th house. You may have tapped into dating with Venus and Scorpio, your 5th house, and maybe built some relationships, negotiated contracts, explored partnerships with Mercury and the Sun in your 7th house. In January, you're still continuing to handle work matters and you're still partnering up, but there might be some breakthroughs and revelations connecting your dynamics with other people, connected to outdated patterns of relating, outdated patterns of getting involved with other people. Whether that means like literal debts you have that you need to pay off, or if that means your tendency to get too invested into your friend's love life to a point that it stresses you out. Those are possibilities. Possibilities are endless. So January begins with Mercury going direct in your 6th house on January 1st. Mercury went retrograde on December 13th, so you have been rethinking your agreements with other people. Mercury started the retrograde in Capricorn and shifted down into Sagittarius. So you may have been looking at your relationships, both professionally and personally, and kind of examining them for maybe which one of them are helping versus which ones are hindering you. You may have been renegotiating some contracts and figuring out better flow. You may have dealt with some exes returning into your life, but only, I think, to bring more understanding to you. So now that Mercury goes direct on January 1st, you can expect more insight when it comes to relationships, more insight when it comes to professional work or other type of work, more insights when it comes to health and service. I think ultimately for you, this retrograde period has been about how do my relationships allow for me to take care of myself. And so the retrograde ending on the 1st could be helpful for finding answers. We also have Venus in Sagittarius, your 6th house, until January 23rd. And she will bless you with better health. She will bless you with easier relationships with colleagues. She will also encourage you to have more fun when you're exercising, when you're getting your clothes organized, when you're cleaning. So maybe it's a good time to take a dance class or to to kind of streamline your routines, listen to some music while you're cleaning. The more challenging dates professionally and health-wise, and maybe some challenges coming from the sector of education, you know, any sort of legal matters you're dealing with, are January 1st and 19th, as Venus squares Saturn and squares Neptune. So you may need to sort of recommit to the work that you're doing and address some illusions that you're having about being able to handle it all, because chances are you probably cannot. So if you need to release some kind of education, travel, legal, writing responsibility, or restructure the way you approach those responsibilities, go for it. On January 4th, Mars enters Capricorn, your 7th house. The sun is here until January 20th. Mercury joins on the 13th and Venus does on the 23rd. So 7th house is busy for you. It's packed. And this month you're also quite active when it comes to dating, whether if you are in a relationship, you're going on more dates, or if you're single, you're being approached by more people perhaps, or approaching more people. Or you may be more active with your partner. If you're single, this could be your de facto partner, right? Like, we all have relationships with other people that are similar to marriage. People can have marriage-like relationship with their parent. They can have a marriage-like relationship with their friend. So a lot of focus on relationships, a lot of focus on dating, signing contracts, maybe negotiating business deals. There is a new moon here on January 11th that connects to Uranus in the 11th. So connects the new moon in the house of relationships and partnerships, connected to Uranus in the house of friendships. And on January 9th, we actually also have Mars in the 7th, sextile Saturn in the 9th. So that also brings up even more topics of like education, travel, expansion, writing. But there is a new moon. There is a new, fresh beginning in your house of relationships. There may be new opportunities to date. The trine to Uranus in the 11th is also suggestive of a friend becoming a partner, or a friend becoming a lover. Lover. What a terrible word. I mean, it's an okay word, but I think it's sort of cheesy. So yeah, you're connecting your house of partnerships to the house of friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams. And maybe you are, you know, starting a blog with your friend, or maybe you are kind of getting connected to people who know the right people through your friends. Maybe you are exploring teaching with a friend, or starting a travel agency with a friend. Some kind of important development, I think, when it comes to romantic partnerships, or when it comes to your business partnerships. On January 20th, the sun conjoins Pluto in Capricorn, your 7th house, and that could be the time when you face shadows, find out secrets, discover obsessions and unhealthy tendencies in relationships. They can, of course, come through your partner, or they can come through yourself. You can become more self-aware. And then immediately on the same day, the sun enters Aquarius, your 8th house, and so does Pluto. And this is the time when you are becoming more aware of your agreements in relationships, because 8th house is the place of shared resources. It's the place of, I give you this, you give me that. And the Pluto transit here, which is, we've had Pluto in Aquarius between March 23rd and June 11th, like a very brief introduction. But take a look back at what was happening in terms of debts, taxes, agreements with other people, even like sexual relationships, but very much your dependencies or your entanglements with other people. Because the sun being here and Pluto being here, fresh from the sun-Pluto conjunction, is a sign that you're becoming more aware of the unhealthy dynamics, and you're getting ready to change your financial relationships. You're getting ready to maybe handle some debts, maybe free yourself from agreements that are not serving you. Maybe, you know, you can also, Pluto will stay in Aquarius for about 20 years. This year, we get like a brief intermission between September 1st and I think early November. But it's the start of a 20-year transit in which you are, I think, taking more responsibility for what you get involved in, paying off debts, benefiting through partnerships, benefiting through inheritance, and perhaps addressing fears around death or money and taking control of those topics. And please let me know if March 23rd, June 11th, 2023 brought up any of these questions. On January 25th, we have a full moon in Leo, your second house. This completes the chapter started in mid-August with a new moon in Leo and brings changes around money and values. So on some level, this could be very internal, where you're just realizing that you need to prioritize yourself, that you need to redefine relationships you have with other people. And it could also bring financial changes. We are talking about money with the 8th house, and we are talking about the money in the 2nd house. So here, I think the full moon invites you to value yourself more. It invites you to ask for more money. You may be paying off a debt, you may be making a big investment, getting a raise, starting a business. Just watch out that you're not overspending at this time, because the full moon does square Jupiter, and Jupiter tends to blow things up. On January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 11th house, helping you make external changes related to friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams after you've been thinking about them internally. Uranus going direct will be very helpful for making change happen, making progress happen. And if you'd like to know what January has in store for you, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and get your 2024 forecast discounted in my services, or save even more by purchasing a recorded reading in the shop section of my website to know what 2024 has in store for you. I'm gonna take a sip and continue. My lovely Leo risings, happy new year. In December, you have been highly focused on love, creativity, joy, and pleasure. But you may have felt sort of stuck a little bit, right? Because Mercury was retrograding in your 6th house of work and then going into the 5th house. So perhaps there were some work matters that felt unfulfilling, and you could have struggled to figure out how to have more joy and fun and pleasure in your life. There could have also been a lot of focus on your home, family, and living situation. In January, you're still continuing to deal with those work matters and problem solving. You're getting some clarity on the topics of fun, romance, creativity, pleasure, children. And you may experience certain breakthroughs in relationships and business agreements, contracts, and partnerships as the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius, your 7th house. And that is a big deal. So January starts off with Mercury going direct on January 1st in Sagittarius, your 5th house. And like I said, the retrograde began in the 6th and went into the 5th. Suggestive of needing to rethink your everyday life and the obligations you have, the duties, the hard work that you're doing, and whether those allow and let in joy, and whether those are truly fulfilling. So Mercury going direct on January 1st can actually bring forward momentum and insight and answers about what you need to do to have more fun. They can also bring some romantic clarity if you've been dealing with any sort of relationship confusion, and they could be quite creatively fulfilling, I'd say, as well as if there were any problems you've been dealing with around your child and their life and their future or their health. Mercury going direct can finally provide some answers. We also have Venus in Sagittarius until January 23rd. Venus is in her joy in your 5th house, and this is a beautiful time for dating. This is a beautiful time for making art, making love, making babies, or hanging out with babies, as well as 5th house is your inner child. So letting your inner child out, letting your inner child shine. The only 2 dates I'm going to flag as difficult when it comes to Venus and Sagittarius are January 1st and January 19th. So even though Mercury goes direct on January 1st, Venus squares Saturn on January 1st. And that could be the time when you're the 1st and 19th both could be the period when you're looking at how your fund depends on the resources you have, maybe certain debts you have to pay. It's just sort of like there's like a reality check moment where you are realizing that you need to either be better with finances or maybe, I guess kind of, be better with finances, restructure finances, and maybe examine how you're letting other people affect your pleasure. Mars enters Capricorn, another house joy. You're getting your 6th house on January 4th, joining the sun. Mercury comes in here on the 13th, Venus comes here on the 23rd, so your 6th house is quite highlighted and prominent this month as well. And that means you are getting a lot of work done. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. 6th house is all about health, work, service. So you are on fire when it comes to your duties. You are more energetic, more driven to exercise. It's a great time to start new workout routines. And on January 11th, we get a new moon in Capricorn in a trine to Uranus in the 10th house. So it's a start of a new chapter at work. And I like that it trines Uranus in the 10th house because it means that that new chapter can actually help you forward your career. So on a practical level, this could be just like another duty that maybe you add to your list, but it shows your boss that you're more capable. It could also be the time when you start exercising and maybe starting a new diet so that you can run a marathon or that you can accomplish something. Maybe you're starting a new hard but rewarding project, right? Like writing a book that will require a lot of labor, because in the immediate, this new moon brings a lot of labor to you. But then the trine to Uranus is suggestive that it's beneficial to your reputation, your status, your career. And maybe, like I said, it's either a work project, or I can also see this as like a health project where you are, by working on your body, you're also working on becoming a better employee or a better boss potentially. January 20th is a big day. The sun conjoins Pluto in your 6th house, which could reveal shadows around work, which could reveal shadows around how you take care of yourself, maybe some problems that haven't been solved and some challenges, right? Like there might be secrets getting revealed and certain frustrations with colleagues or with your work situation. Maybe even 6th house is classically the place of sacrifice. So the sun conjoining Pluto here could either make you really driven to get what you want, or it could make you feel frustrated with the fact that you've been sacrificing a lot. And then right after, on January 20th, still the same day, the sun enters Aquarius, your 7th house, and Pluto enters Aquarius, your 7th house. And that suggests that it's time to change your relationships and it's time to change your agreements. So you get this flashing moment of light where you're seeing what's not working. And then the transit of Sun and Pluto in Aquarius, and Pluto is basically staying in Aquarius until 2043, except for a brief intermission between September and November this year. So you are, like the Pluto in Aquarius, we had an introduction of that between March 23rd and June 11th, 2023. Please let me know how that went for you. But Pluto in Aquarius will suggest that you are first facing shadows in relationships, addressing fears, and then slowly getting ready for a revolution in your love life, where you're becoming more open, you're becoming more honest, you're becoming more aware of how your actions attract what they do, and you're taking responsibility for your partnerships, right? And your part in them. So it's quite interesting. This time around, Pluto will get up to 2 degrees Aquarius and then will retrograde. So Pluto is starting to completely sort of move into your 7th house. And please let me know how this first 2023 introduction was for you. January 25th, full moon is in Leo, your 1st house. So this is a significant period in which you're looking at yourself. And it's a completion of a cycle that got started in mid-August. Venus would have been retrograde in your 1st house. There was a new moon in your 1st house. And perhaps you started something. Perhaps you started a new job, or you started working out, or maybe you've envisioned like a different look for yourself and you started working towards it. So the new moon in the first house could be the time of completion of that, right? Getting recognition, getting more rewards, getting to a point where you feel happy with your progress and successful and accomplished. And even if you're not there yet, still take a moment to celebrate yourself. But be careful of like taking on too much or being too boastful, too proud, promising too much, because the full moon squares Jupiter. And on January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 10th house, allowing you to make external changes professionally after you have felt restless and ready for a change, but didn't quite know how to bring forth the change. So opportunities for professional development are highly likely here. And it's interesting because with Pluto in your 7th, perhaps you are starting a business or you are kind of starting new partnerships that can help forward your career. And if you'd like to know what the month and other transits have in store for you, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiaastrology.com, and get your 2024 forecast to find out what's ahead for you. The live in-person reading is currently discounted, and a recorded reading is even more discounted. Check out the links down below and find information there. My lovely Virgo risings, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. In December, you were very focused on spending time with family, maybe changing your living situation. Your love life could have been more inspired, or you could have been thinking about having more space for creativity, more space for joy, more space for pleasure in your home as Mercury retrograded from your 5th house into the 4th. So suggesting a need to adjust around home, family, living situation, as well as adjust around topics of children, topics of romance, topics of creativity. And there could have been more action with siblings, neighbors. Maybe you've done more writing. Maybe you've networked a lot more. In January, you're still looking at the 4th and the 5th house. So still looking at your living situation, maybe making some positive changes as Venus is in Sagittarius until January 23rd, bringing more ease to your familial relationships, bringing a desire to beautify your home, to make improvements, to add more art, right? And the 5th house is also activated for you, so dating, having fun is quite likely, quite a big place of attention for you this month, as well as some professional breakthroughs are likely as Pluto activates your 6th house when it enters Aquarius. So January starts off with Mercury going direct. You are ruled by Mercury, so hooray, Mercury goes direct on January 1st in your 4th house. And this is interesting because, like I said, the retrograde started in the 5th and it went into the 4th, connecting the house of romance, children, joy with the house of home, family, and living situation. And maybe it's the fact that your child needed a certain school and that brought focus to you needing to move. Maybe it's the fact that your relationship has been progressing and you are getting ready to move in with your partner that needed you to look at your living situation. But the Mercury going direct on January 1st can definitely bring some answers surrounding moving, surrounding renovation, surrounding family dynamics, maybe making it easier to communicate, get along, and find answers, right? January 1st can be a little bit difficult because we also have Venus squaring Saturn. So, and then, on the 19th of January, Venus will square Neptune. And that is similar to the, around November 9, 11th and November 22nd, 27th, if you remember those dates, we had Mercury, the Sun, and Mars square Saturn, highlighting some kind of pressures in relationships that are affecting your home, family, and living situation. So, January 1st can also bring that up. And maybe, maybe your partner is struggling, or maybe your relationship is asking a lot of serious questions, asking you to commit to it, asking you to make sacrifices. And it's affecting either your peace of mind or it's affecting where you see yourself living. And so January 1st, January 19th can once again make you take a look at that and perhaps figure out where you need to commit and where do you need to sacrifice and where do you need to be more honest and clear and realistic. So on January 4th, Mars enters Capricorn. Mercury joins Mars there on the 13th, and Venus does on the 23rd. And of course, the Sun is in Capricorn until January 20th. So Capricorn is a very highlighted place. There's a lot of action happening in Capricorn in January. And that is your 5th house of creative self-expression. So maybe you're going dancing or painting or having a good time. It's the house of children. We actually get a new moon here on January 11th, so conception is quite likely. If you're like, no kids for me, please, this could also be a start of a new creative project. Maybe you're starting to write. Maybe you're starting to take pottery classes, right? And this is also a very romantic place, so starting to date someone new is quite likely here. We also have, around this time, we also have Mars in your 5th house, sextiling Saturn in the 7th. So your relationships are starting to flow a little better, I think. And that could mean, once again, romantic relationships, or it could be more of like a business or professional partnership that allows you to express your creative urges, that allows you to express yourself as a parent, as a creative individual, and sort of shine your light. What's worth mentioning here is that the new moon trines Uranus in the 9th house, so that brings in topics of foreigners. And if we are talking about dating, I can see that as dating a foreigner, someone you met while traveling, someone who is maybe very well-educated and intellectual potentially. Or this could mean partnerships and opportunities to have fun that involve education, that involve travel, that involve writing, law, philosophy of some sort. So maybe you're establishing yourself as a teacher, establishing yourself as a writer, and doing so potentially in partnership with someone, or looking for allies that can help you out. On January 20th, we have the Sun conjunct Pluto in your 5th house. And this is powerful for revealing any kind of shadows and questions in relationships. It could highlight any power struggles in relationships. It could highlight where your beliefs about love are outdated, or where you are maybe too controlling when it comes to creative projects, like my way or the highway. It could also bring up any fears you have about children or about becoming a parent. But also what is pleasure to you, right? Understanding that maybe you're standing in your own way, or maybe your relationship to pleasure is outdated and it needs to be reformatted, reframed. And then immediately on January 20th, the Sun enters Aquarius, your 6th house, and so does Pluto. And Pluto will stay in Aquarius for pretty much 20 years. There's going to be a brief 2-month intermission this year in September, but it's like a start of a 20-year chapter. And Pluto in the 6th house together with the Sun, I think, is inviting you to take stock of how you take care of yourself and how the work that you do serves other people. So it could be indicative of needing more freedom professionally, where you are reinventing how you're handling work, how you're handling your daily routines, how you're handling habits, letting go of the ones that are not serving you, bringing in more of those that are. You may find yourself becoming more prominent in the realm of healing, in the realm of helping, serving other people, helping animals, all very 6th house topics. And choosing to direct your work, which could have also been the topic of the 5th house Sun-Pluto conjunction. If you realize what pleasure is, perhaps it's the time to release something outdated in your life and choose to be more in charge, choose to be more in control. Instead of claiming that things happen to you, take charge, be the one. And we've had Pluto in Aquarius between March 23rd and June 11th, 2023. Take a look back. Let me know if any of those topics have showed up already. Maybe you've dealt with some introduction of those themes, and now you are getting more ready to take charge. But it's a slow moving transit. Pluto takes about 20 years to travel through Aquarius. So slow burn, slow change. On January 25th, there's a full moon in your 12th house, completing a cycle started in mid-August when we had a new moon in Leo in your 12th house. So this full moon in Leo brings transformations to your mental health. It can encourage you to rest more. It can encourage you to take better care take better care of your spiritual life. It can encourage you to let something go. It's interesting because we're talking about Pluto in the 6th, right? And the full moon in Leo in the 12th is very much like, what do you really need to feel at ease? What do you need to feel calm and secure? And this could be the time when you are invited to to sort of like focus on what brings you pleasure and joy, and maybe let go of some noise and some frustrations that are not helping you. It's that full moon is a great time to like retreat, to lean into journaling, spirituality, and rest a little bit. On January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 9th house, allowing for more forward momentum in the sector of travel, education, law, writing, publishing. If you have been feeling restless, and if you have been seeking more freedom in the way you express yourself and the way you present your work, Uranus going direct could be just the push you needed to start making the changes. And if you'd like to know what the rest of January has in store for you, become a subscriber on my website, anastasia.astrology.com, and get your 2024 forecast. It's currently discounted, and you can save even more if you buy a recorded version of it in the shop section of my website. If you are a Libra rising, Happy New Year. In December, you have been busy intellectually with the Sun and Mars traveling through your 3rd house. Maybe you took more trips, maybe you wrote, maybe you studied, maybe you started a podcast or expressed your ideas somehow through making videos. There could have been a lot of focus on family and what is family, what is comfort and security. As Mercury entered Capricorn, you could have potentially had to rethink your living situation, whether it means you were thinking of moving or you were thinking of making adjustments to your home and family to be more friendly to your pursuits, to all of the ideas that have been circulating in your head. And there could have been some financial good luck with Venus being in your 2nd house in Scorpio. In January, you're still you're still in that place of traveling and asking big questions and exploring different skills, and you're still dealing with home and family and living situation, as well as there might be some breakthroughs in the house of love, romance, creativity, and children, or at least more focus on it starting January 20th when the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius. So January starts off with Mercury going direct on January 1st, and Mercury goes direct in your 3rd house. So Mercury started the retrograde in the 4th, and then it went backwards into the 3rd, connecting those two, right? So like I said, maybe you've been realizing that you want a different neighborhood in order to feel happy. Maybe you've been realizing that you need to make some kind of logistical changes to your schedule to spend more time at home, or to make changes to your living situation, to your home, to actually streamline it a little bit better, like create a home office or create more space to film videos, or get the equipment that you need to make your home the way you want it to be. So Mercury going direct can bring some insights, can bring some forward momentum, can bring some answers, can also, help you finally communicate with more ease and maybe finish some writing projects, maybe resolve some conflicts with siblings if you dealt with any of them, and get your schedule on point. Venus, your chart ruler, is in Sagittarius, your 3rd house, until January 23rd. So this is beneficial for communication. You're communicating, even though Venus in Sag is very blunt, but you're being blunt with charm, right? So that is great. It could be the time when you're enjoying your neighborhood, when your relationship with siblings, neighbors become easier, and you're just enjoying the encounters around you, or getting more kind of pleasure in connecting with other people. Exploring new ideas is also likely. Some tests are possible around January 1st and January 19th as Venus squares Saturn. And to me that feels, so on the 1st Venus squares Saturn, on the 19th Venus squares Neptune. And that to me feels like your workload or your health potentially requires your attention, which takes away from just having a good time, right? Venus in the 3rd wants to be like, oh, let's go ice skating, or let's go rollerblading. I don't know why they're both involving skates of some sort, but like she wants to enjoy life. But Saturn is like, okay, no, but you have this project you're working on, or, no, you have like a dentist appointment. So take good care of your health and try to find good balance between doing work and still having a good time. Your 4th house, your house of home and family, stays quite important in the picture as Mars enters your 4th on January 4th. The Sun is here, Mercury enters on the 13th, Venus goes here on the 23rd. So a lot of action in the home. Mars wants to do DIY projects, it wants to make improvements, it wants to spend time with family, maybe be active with family. You get a new moon here on January 11th, which is suggestive of new beginnings in the home. I like that this new moon trines Uranus in the 8th. It's like quite positive flow between your living situation and the money of other people or resources of other people. So maybe somebody helps you get the apartment of your dreams, or your mortgage gets approved, or your family gives you some money or something, or you're investing into real estate. There is a lot of exciting kind of new beginnings, and it's quite a supported new moon. It has a happy energy. Starting building something in the home, or, like I said, make adjustments to enjoy your home better is also likely here. And then on January 20th, the Sun conjoins Pluto in the 4th house, which is a big kind of transformation, reset, and invitation to examine your living situation still, but also maybe examine your patterns of relating. 4th house is our early life. It's what we kind of started with as the blueprint, right? Like, which family dynamics did we see? What kind of love we have experienced? How our childhood shaped us? Which fears we brought in? So Sun conjunct Pluto can be shining light on all of those shadowy objects and shadowy questions. How are you still carrying with you the traumas of your early life is the big question here. And then what happens right after on January 20th is the Sun and Pluto hand in hand waltz into Aquarius, your 5th house. So now after you have been for a while, and some planets are still in the 4th house, after you have been looking at where you live and where you come from and what you find soothing or what you're still afraid of, where you're being too resistant, the Sun and Pluto invite you to look at the house of pleasure, at the house of joy, at the house of children, right? So they start this, especially Pluto, which will stay in Aquarius for 20 years, except for like a brief intermission in September, October this year. Pluto is very much like going to change your fun, your pleasure, your relationships with or to the topic of children, your love relationships. So it's very kind of fascinating to me that we get this conjunction in the 4th house right before they go into the 5th house, because you're starting to see how a lot of your fears are a product of the past, right? And perhaps you're letting go of them. And with Pluto in the 5th, you may be experiencing some kind of envisioning or change surrounding sexuality and pleasure and joy. Maybe you're understanding why you have been afraid of being a parent, and you're sort of releasing that, right? Like Pluto in Aquarius can be the time when you face a lot of shadows, but also grow and transform tremendously. in love, in creativity, in parenthood. And let me know how the introduction of Pluto in Aquarius between March 23rd and June 11th was for you. Did you notice any of these themes kind of floating up to the surface already? On January 25th, there's a full moon in Leo, your 11th house, completing a cycle that started in August, mid-August, when we had the new moon in Leo. At that time in August, we also had Venus retrograde in Leo. So this is a big point of change in your friendships, in your networks, and your role in the collective. If you have been eyeing out a group of mean girls, right? Maybe you become one of them. Maybe it's the time when you're releasing a friendship that is not satisfying. Maybe it's the time when you're completing a creative project or a group project. Getting recognized on social media, getting sort of uplifted and appreciated and feeling fulfilled and happy with what you're working on is quite likely here. Watch out for overspending or trying extra hard to be liked, because we also have the full moon squaring Jupiter in your 8th house, and that could be a bit of a be careful type energy. On January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 8th house, and you may experience more opportunities to get access to the resources of other people, to get loans, to get mortgages, to kind of handle debts, taxes, any kind of engagements with other people, and maybe start new ones or find freedom from the old ones as Uranus goes direct in the 8th. And if you'd like to know what the rest of the month has in store for you, become a subscriber on Anastasia.astrology.com and get your 2024 horoscope. It is discounted until the end of January, and you can save even more if you buy a recorded version in the shop section of my website. My lovely Scorpio rising, Happy New Year. In December, there was a lot of focus on your finances as you maybe spent money, made more money, invested, bought gifts, etc. And your house of skills and hobbies and gifts and talents, with Mercury entering Capricorn and then retrograding into Sagittarius. Mercury actually goes direct on January 1st, so the retrograde that started on December 13th completes, and the retrograde went from your 3rd house into your 2nd house. So I wonder if you've been asking about the value your ideas have, perhaps the value your knowledge has or your skills have, and have been brainstorming new financial ideas, right? New financial opportunities. So Mercury going direct on January 1st can actually bring some answers and can bring more clarity around finances. Maybe, you've found out that you have some kind of debt that you needed to address, and now you pay it off and you feel more free. Maybe there's more clarity about what you value and what you desire, but in any case, Mercury going direct could be a sign of more progress. Venus is also in your 2nd house of money and values until January 23rd, and she can bless you with better financial luck. She can bless you with more gifts. She can also inspire you to spend more money on relationships, on beauty products, on art. It's actually quite a good time to invest into art. And a couple of challenging dates I want to flag for Venus and finances or values are January 1st and January 19th. So even though Mercury goes direct on January 1st, we also have Venus in your 2nd house squaring Saturn in the 5th. And then on the 19th of January, Venus will square Neptune in the 5th. And this is, I think, a need to come to an agreement with your creative or romantic partner around something important, like the topic of children or like the topic of your creative vision, or even just come to an agreement with yourself if you're trying to figure out how to handle spending money. The square to Saturn is always an invitation to recommit, to maybe get more clear about what's realistic, what's not, and then to proceed slowly. Your 3rd house is quite busy this month as Mars, your chart ruler, enters Capricorn on January 4th. The Sun is here until January 20th. Mercury and Venus all come in throughout the month. Mercury on the 13th, Venus on the 23rd. And so the focus on your skills, your knowledge, your communication, your community is continuing as you are maybe traveling more, maybe you're scheduling more things. Be careful of driving too fast. That's the symptom of Mars in the third. But your mind is quite busy. I like Mars in the third house. I think it's an exalted Mars too, lots of reasons to be excited. But you are more productive, you're more proactive, you are ready to take the life by its horns, start a business, communicate, start a blog, take an exam, handle some kind of logistical issue, whatever. We also get a new moon here, which even strengthens that energy more on January 11th. The new moon trines Uranus in the 7th, bringing in the idea of partnerships. So starting partnerships that utilize your skills, that help you forward your business, that allow for more communication, that allow for writing, that maybe even bring in your siblings and bring in your community where you're taking on a different role, is quite likely here. And it's pretty exciting. Around the same time on January 9th, we also have Mars sextiling Saturn, connecting your third house to the fifth. So I feel like you're starting a website, or you're starting a blog, or you're starting a business, or some kind of exploring a skill that you have and birthing something, right? Saturn in the fifth house is very much your commitment to pursuing your passions, and you are all in with the new moon and with all of these planets, especially your chart ruler in the third house. On January 20th, the Sun conjoins Pluto in your third house, which will make you even more passionate. But to a point that maybe this passion can turn into obsession. It can also reveal Sun shines light, Pluto represents shadows. So the Sun conjoining Pluto can very much reveal where are you holding on too tightly, or where are you being too rigid, where are you being too kind of fearful of things, and then indicate what needs to change. It can also be symbolic of powerful conversations. Third house also very much represents communication, right? So the Sun conjunct Pluto could be revealing secrets, could be highlighting some kind of shadowy dynamics in relationships with siblings, with neighbors, and encouraging you to say things that need to be said. And then immediately after that, on January 20th, we have the Sun and Pluto entering Aquarius, your fourth house. And this, especially Pluto, is so important, right? Because your focus shifts to the sector of home, family, pleasure. And Pluto here will slowly transform your life. It will transform your relationships with family members, which is fascinating that this happens after the Sun-Pluto conjunction in the house of communication and siblings and neighbors, right? So Pluto being in the fourth house could be the time you move. I moved across the ocean when Pluto was in my fourth house. Maybe you establish different relationships with family members. There might be some kind of sort of empowerment with Pluto in the fourth house, where you are initially facing shadows, maybe discovering secrets about family members, dealing with some kind of adversity in the home, but eventually you're willing to separate yourself from the past. You're willing to separate yourself from the challenges that your family faced once. You're willing to find more comfort in being who you are, right? It's quite interesting. And Pluto has already dipped into Aquarius between March 23rd and June 11th. So if you have faced anything like this, or have felt any urges or any kind of questions of family, home, living situation get activated, please let me know down below. We can reflect on it together. On January 25th, there is a big full moon in your house of career, which represents a culmination of the cycle that started in mid-August. We had a new moon in Leo on August 16th, simultaneously with Venus retrograde in your house of career. So if you have started any professional projects, if you have started to look for a job, or if you've decided that you want to change directions, the full moon in the 10th house could be the time of recognition, you getting that job, you getting more secure in the path that you're on, you becoming a business owner, and sort of celebrating your accomplishments. Be careful that you're not overextending yourself, because the full moon squares Pluto, but definitely take a moment to appreciate how far you've come, and to perhaps celebrate the lion within you, the one that perseveres and accomplishes things. On January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 7th house, bringing opportunities for outer progress, outer change in relationships after you have gone through a lot of inner work and inner change. And there might be opportunities to start a business, to sort of revolutionize your relationship, to maybe sign exciting contracts and move ahead with any like business partnership relationship initiatives that have been on the back burner a little bit. And if you'd like to know what the rest of January and other transits have in store for you, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and get your 2024 year ahead reading. It is currently discounted until the end of the month. And you can save even more by purchasing a recorded version in the shop section of my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Check it out. New Year! My lovely Sagittarius risings, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. In December, you were very kind of focused on your image, your body. You may have been reinventing yourself and questioning who you are. As the Sun and Mars traveled through Sagittarius, there could have been a lot of focus on what's important to you, what you truly value. As Mercury entered Capricorn and then went retrograde, kind of highlighting, values, money, self, like progress, personal understanding. And then there could have been also a bit more hidden romantic developments with Venus traveling through your 12th house. In January, you're still very kind of focused on your personal image, on resources, and there might be some breakthroughs in the house of skills, communication, siblings, business, as Pluto and the Sun enter Aquarius. So those are very significant. The Aquarius transits, especially Pluto, is very kind of big. More on that in a minute. But January begins with Mercury going direct. I'm going to take a sip. On January 1st, in your first house of self. So Mercury started the retrograde on December 13th, went back from your second house into the first house. And maybe you've been looking at how you're spending your money, or what do you truly value and what do you need to invest more in? The answer is yourself. So the Mercury going direct could be the time when, if you have been thinking of like your look, your style, your wardrobe, your skincare routine, Mercury goes direct and you are more capable or more ready to make changes, maybe to change your hair, to change your style, to change your wardrobe, all of these kind of things. Venus is actually in Sagittarius, your first house, until January 23rd. So she's also supportive of any changes to your look. But I would be careful of making big changes around January 1st and January 19th. Give it 3 days before, 3 days after, as Venus in the first house squares Saturn in the fourth, and then squares Neptune in the fourth. And so in general, Venus in your first house would be the time when you feel more beautiful, more charming, more sort of, ready to have fun, ready to connect with people, better at manifesting things. But those 2 days, the 1st and the 19th, can bring up certain duties and tensions related to home, family, living situation, maybe a sense of lacking comfort, maybe a sense of feeling sort of not supported somehow, and they can dampen your fun. These transits will disappear, quickly, but look at them as an opportunity to recommit to yourself, to maybe just get realistic on what's possible in terms of your growth and what needs to be taken slower, and release some illusions. Like if you are, working at a regular job and you have this dream to move to Paris, maybe you need to make a plan first. You cannot expect to move to Paris like tomorrow. So yeah, like needing to face certain illusions around home, family, living situation is quite likely. So second house is quite busy for you. Mars enters Capricorn, your second house, on January 4th. The Sun is already here. Mercury enters on the 13th. Venus enters on the 23rd. So with that much focus on the second house, you are very financially driven, where Mars can help you make more money. It's an exalted, powerful Mars. It's also likely that you will be spending more money. Mars in the second is like very much burning through cash, but you are spending a lot and then you're quickly recovering and making more. Of course, when Venus comes in on the 23rd, this could become easier, more wins, less losses, but before then there could be a mix of those. There's also a new moon in your second house on January 11th in a trine to Uranus in the sixth house. So the new moon in Capricorn is suggestive of new starts when it comes to your resources, when it comes to your values and what you spend on. So starting a new job, making a big investment, spending money on a big purchase, starting to save money is all likely. Second house, like I said, is also tied to self-worth. And so doing things that can help you feel more secure within yourself is also quite likely. Part of me wonders if these financial changes are connected to your living situation, because only 2 days before the new moon on the 9th of the month, Mars in your second house will sextile Saturn in the 4th. So maybe you're coming up with a better strategy that will allow you to move to the house of your dreams, or maybe you are starting to save for a home, right? Or maybe you're buying a property or something like that is possible here. On January 20th, the Sun conjoins Pluto in Capricorn, your second house. I'm just going to move my neck because I need to potentially rethink my filming strategy. Sometimes filming for a while makes my back hurt. So straightening the back. Brief intermission. Thank you for sticking around. So January 20th, the Sun conjoins Pluto in your second house. And this could be both the spark of some kind of desire, some kind of inspiration in terms of making money, as well as it could be quite revealing of your resistance or your self-doubt or your fears surrounding money. Maybe even some kind of, self-doubts when it comes to abundance. Like you realize that you believe that you cannot make $1 million, right? And that could become very clear to you. So seeing the fears you have could then help you move forward in changing them. And what's interesting is immediately after, on the 20th of January, we have the Sun entering Aquarius and Pluto entering Aquarius. And Pluto enters Aquarius for 20 years, right? We have like a brief 2 months intermission when it goes back to Capricorn, but then ingresses into Aquarius until 2043. And Pluto and the Sun go into your third house, which is an invitation to have a mindset shift. Pluto in the third house is like very much the time when you look very closely at your thoughts, at your words, at your communication patterns, and realize which ones are not helping you, which ones need to be released, versus which ones need to be built up, which ones need to be encouraged, right? Kind of rewiring your brain slowly but surely for the next 20 years with positive affirmations, with new pursuits, with new gifts, new talents that you're committing to. So you can become a writer in the next 20 years. You can start a business. You can, take ownership of your skills, start partnerships with siblings, take a different role in your community. The possibilities are endless. And let me know how Pluto entering Aquarius between March 23rd and June 11th went for you. Did it bring up any of these themes? Because you may experience another round right now. On January 25th, there's a full moon in Leo, your 9th house. And that's fascinating because my Sagittarius rising friend has been talking and thinking about planning a trip. And 9th house represents travel. And around this time, she will be on that trip that took a long time of manifesting, right? So the full moon in your 9th house is a completion of the chapter related to education, travel, legal matters, writing, publishing that would have started in mid-August when we had a new moon in Leo. So take a look back. And like I said, this would bring change to the sector of education. So graduating or completing some kind of dissertation, right? Taking an exam, getting recognized for your work, getting recognized for your knowledge, experiencing some kind of breakthrough when it comes to your belief in yourself. Some kind of ideological shift is likely here. But Leo wants to be appreciated. Leo wants to be recognized. So take a moment, to appreciate yourself. Take a moment to applaud yourself and acknowledge the progress that you have made in the last 6 months. But be careful that you don't take on too much in that pursuit for recognition, because the full moon is squaring Jupiter, and that could be potentially a bit more like a tendency to overdo it. On January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 6th house. And if you have been feeling restless when it comes to the questions of work, health, service, working, like helping other people, maybe just like a lot of inner questions or inner asking yourself things but not knowing the answers, Uranus going direct on January 27th can definitely bring opportunities for more external shifts and external changes in the sector of work, in the sector of health, in the sector of helping, healing, and taking care of other people's struggles. And if you'd like to know what the rest of January has in store for you, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiaastrology.com, and get your 2024 year ahead forecast that is currently discounted until the end of January, and you can save even more by purchasing a recorded version of that forecast. If you are a Capricorn rising, Happy New Year! Happy 2024! December had a bit slower energy, right? You may have traveled, you may have escaped and gone to another country with the Sun and Mars in your 12th house. You may have asked a lot of questions about your look, about your style, about your goals, with Mercury being in your 1st house and retrograding in your 1st house. And then going back into Sagittarius, which would have brought up also questions of how you take care of your mental health and what kind of patterns you have that block you, what kind of thoughts you have that don't let you reach your full potential. So in January, we're still looking at your sector of mental health as you're potentially getting some answers, right? Mercury goes direct on January 1st in your 12th house. So all of this kind of inner work, maybe, focus on spiritual pursuits, maybe asking yourself what kind of hidden passions you have that need to be brought out into the world completes, or at least starts to, the puzzle starts to come together on January 1st when Mercury goes direct, so you can experience more insights, more progress when it comes to self-understanding, when it comes to self-defeating tendencies or spiritual pursuits. And then we also have a lot of focus on you and your identity, as well as your house of money and values this month. So before, just to mention also that Venus is in Sagittarius, your 12th house, until January 23rd. So this is a more behind the scenes, clandestine Venus, where your love life maybe shifts to behind the closed doors. Be careful that you're not sort of sabotaging your relationships. That's always the danger of Venus in the 12th house. Make sure you're not choosing partners who are unhealthy, who are, not giving you what you want, and you're sort of sacrificing yourself. Especially difficult could be January 1st and January 19th, as Venus squares Saturn and Venus squares Neptune. So those are 2 dates to watch for. Your 1st house continues to be activated as Mars enters Capricorn on January 4th, Mercury on January 13th, Venus on the 23rd, and the Sun is, of course, here as we are in the middle of Capricorn season until January 20th. So this starts to take the weight off. It can start to sort of make it lighter, make all of these deep, important questions, like personal questions, help them lighten up to a point that you're getting more, you're like, you have been in your head a lot, but I think as January progresses, you're finally being able to take action, to maybe bring in some new practices to take care of your health. Maybe you're finally changing your look, right? Starting to exercise, starting new personal projects. Mars in Capricorn is exalted, so you're getting this very like the god of action and war and initiative in your 1st house, and you become that god of action and war. On January 11th, we have a new moon in your 1st house and a trine to Uranus in the 5th. Very much all about you. The new moon that brings new beginnings connected to your physical body. It trines Uranus in the 5th house of children. So I wonder if pregnancy is on the list, on the menu for some of them, for some of you guys. It brings changes connected to your image, where you're maybe changing your look to fit your like new vision of yourself. There may be new projects that involve creative pursuits, and there may be a new relationship as well, because Uranus in the fifth house. Fifth house represents dating, right? You may be dating a neighbor, or you're maybe working with a neighbor potentially, because around the same time we also have Mars sextiling Saturn in your third house. But yeah, like I can see physical body changes if you are indeed getting pregnant. And I can also see this as more like gearing up to take your skills, to take your knowledge to the next level, and to birth something into existence. On January 20th, we have a very important transit as the Sun conjuncts Pluto in your first house. And this is interesting because it can make you very determined and very aware of your drives and your desires and your motivations. On the negative, it can make you obsessed with something, and it can reveal shadows of maybe outdated beliefs, maybe outdated views of yourself. I think the Sun conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, which is a very traditional sign, can reveal some patterns that are related to yourself, that are related to your initiative, that are related to your fears of like, you know, standing in your own way, or being too rigid in some places, being too fearful of certain things, as well as like, you know, the clarity about things you desire, whether they're truly important to you or not. And then on the same day, on January 20th, we have the Sun and Pluto hand in hand enter Aquarius. And that's significant because Pluto, besides the small period between September, October this year, will be in Aquarius for the next 20 years. And it's a very slow burn, right? Pluto takes 20 years to travel through a sign. It's not going to bring like dramatic changes unless you have planets between like 0 and 1 to potentially degrees of Aquarius. It will be slow. It will be transformative, but very slow. But since we just had that Sun-Pluto conjunction and Mercury retrograde in your first house, you are on the path of transformation. And the insights you received about your true desires, your true values, or even the old patterns that you need to release will bring with them new beginnings professionally, financially. Maybe some kind of, initially you may have to face fears around resources, around not having enough. Pluto in the second house can make you more private when it comes to money. It can also boost your intuition when it comes to investments and what's worth investing, what isn't. It's very much a sign of death and rebirth when it comes to career. But because it's such a slow burn, it's not necessarily going to be very quick. But I think, yeah, like facing fears, facing shadows, facing self-doubt so that you can build better, so that once you realize that you have that resistance or that fear of like not having enough, you can release it, or maybe, you know, create some kind of safety net for yourself and take action in pursuing things that are truly important to you. Because chances are, Capricorn rising, you have been standing at the sidelines waiting for something to happen. And of course, you know, I can't claim that that's truth for most of you, or for all of you, but it probably is the truth for some of you guys. On January 25th, we have the full moon in Leo, your 8th house, and we're continuing the topics, we're continuing the focus on resources, contracts, agreements with other people. This full moon completes the cycle started on August 16th with a new moon in Leo. So if you have started some kind of investment, if you have gotten a loan, if you have started a partnership, the full moon could bring completion or change to those matters. I think with the Pluto and the Sun in your second house opposing this full moon, you are examining the connections you have, romantic, business, professional, whatever it might be, for alignment with your desires, for alignment with your calling and purpose and interests. And so this full moon could be the time when you free yourself from some agreements that are not healthy, when you pay off a debt, when you handle taxes, even healing and finding some kind of freedom from entanglement with unhealthy dynamic is highly likely here. Watch out for overextending yourself or taking on too much because the full moon squares Jupiter. On January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 5th house. If you have been doing a lot of inner work, you have been asking a lot of questions connected to romance, creativity, and children, Uranus going direct could be the time when you get the creative project you have been manifesting, when you become a parent or you start to take more action to become a parent, where the life of your child can get revolutionized and transformed, and your love life can also speed up, and there might be new exciting opportunities here. If you'd like to know what the rest of January has in store for you, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Here is the car horns to tell you to do it. And get your 2024 year ahead reading on my website. It is discounted until the end of January, and you can save even more if you buy a recorded version in the shop section of my website. My beautiful Aquarius risings, Happy New Year! In December, you have been focusing a lot on building your network as the Sun and Mars traveled through Sagittarius. And maybe you have also been focused on your spiritual health by escaping and going away, or by exploring yoga, meditation, spirituality. In January, you're still focusing on those topics. You're still building your network. You're still figuring out what feeds and supports your peace, as well as you can experience some new major personal beginnings as the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius, your 1st house. So that could be a start of a major new 20-year chapter, right? Pluto is big. So January starts off with Mercury going direct on the 1st of the month in Sagittarius, your 11th house. Pluto began its retrograde in your 12th, and then it returned to 11th, connecting your house of mental health, passions and talents, interests, hidden interests, and self-defeating tendencies with the house of friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams. And the way I see this manifesting, it could have been about connecting you with people that support your hidden self, right? Maybe there's a part of you that loves astrology that you're not sharing with everyone. And so this retrograde could have been about finding those people. It could also be about self-defeating tendencies you have in friendships, where you allow other people dictate who you are, or you allow other people affect your hopes and dreams. And so Mercury going direct on the 1st of the month can actually be quite helpful in terms of taking action, in friendships, in terms of figuring out who your true friends are, figuring out who can be supportive for building your community or for expressing your newfound interests potentially. We also have Venus in Sagittarius until January 23rd, and you are more you're shining more in a social context. You are more better at presenting your ideas in front of people. Maybe you're going to more parties, or you're speaking in front of public, getting more support from other people. So this is quite lovely for finding your true connections, true tribe. Except for, like January 1st and January 19th can be complicated and can highlight your financial struggles, or, sort of disagreements and values between you and other people, as Venus squares Saturn and squares Neptune. Mars enters Capricorn, your 12th house, on January 4th. The Sun is here until 20th. Mercury goes in and on the 13th, and so does Venus on the 23rd. So this highlights your house of rest, mental health, spirituality, imagination. And you are kind of getting ready to get away. You may be escaping, you may be traveling, you may be resting a little bit more. Your love life could become more private, especially come January 23rd. Be careful that you're not 12th house transits are great for spiritual new beginnings, especially since we have a new moon here on January 11th. So starting new spiritual practices, but they can be challenging for being in your head a lot, or taking action that is sort of unhealthy and self-defeating. So if we're talking about love, being maybe being too needy and not realizing it, or being too codependent and not realizing how it's hurting you. So some of the self-defeating tendencies will definitely be brought up into your immediate environment. 12th house is the blind spot. So a lot of times we don't realize what we're doing that is unhealthy, but the 12th house transits tend to put us in that place of solitude because perhaps you're traveling, or perhaps you're resting, or perhaps you're working on your mental health, and they can bring those questions to the forefront. So the new moon, like I said, on the 11th trines Uranus in the 4th. That is quite exciting. So I think on some level you are finding comfort. 4th house represents comfort and security in spirituality. But for some of you, I wonder if it means that you're like getting away and you feel so comfortable there that maybe you're deciding to stay in the place that you've escaped to. But also very much, opportunity to create maybe a more sacred spiritual place at home, maybe create a meditation corner, maybe you are healing a childhood wound, investing into your mental health, starting therapy. All of those are lovely possible new beginnings here. January 20th is a huge day. We have the Sun conjunct Pluto in your 12th house, which is very much like light bulb goes off. Sun conjoins Pluto. Pluto is all of your shadows and darkness and things that are hiding in the background, right? So Sun conjoins Pluto, bringing attention to your mental health, bringing attention to your deep-seated patterns that maybe come from childhood or that stand in your way, that serve to undo some of your progress, right? You're sort of like, you're getting more clear. You may find out a secret, you may discover something about yourself, and then immediately the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius, your first house. We already had Pluto dip its toes in Aquarius between March 23rd and June 11th. Please let me know how it went for you. Was it significant? Did you face any shadows? Did you ask questions about your power? Something crazy is going on outside. People like yelling. They're like, Pluto and Aquarius. No, they're not, but they could be, we don't know. So the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius. You are an Aqua rising, right? So this is a big, big deal. Pluto moves slowly. Pluto will be in Aquarius for about 20 years until 2043. We have a brief intermission, September, October this year when it comes back to Capricorn, but pretty much the next 20 years, Pluto is in your sign. And Pluto always brings shadows, right? Pluto calls for death and rebirth. We don't like death and rebirth. We don't like to be uncomfortable, but any challenges that you face in the next 20 years, they will all be meant to build your power, to build your self-understanding, to build your courage, right? So initially with Pluto entering Aquarius, you can become more clear about everything that is unhealthy in you, in your body, in the way you handle life, but also in the structures and people around you. And the invitation here is to own your power, to become the person that is in control, right? You can't control other people, but you can control how you react to things. You can control yourself. So Pluto in the first house is very much about finding that inner power, becoming more clear about what you want, becoming more clear about your desires, and making serious kind of healthy choices. So have fun, Aqua risings. On January 25th, full moon in Leo highlights your 7th house, completes the chapter that started in mid-August when we had a new moon in Leo and Venus retrograde in Leo, your 7th house. So here you are very much closing a chapter of romantic growth that lasted 6 months, and you may be letting go of a relationship or you may be transforming it. Chances are you need more play in your romantic life, you need more joy, you need more recognition and appreciation. And so the full moon can offer you a chance to either get that or, let go of something that doesn't serve you and find that. And that could be in business partnerships, that could be in friendships that are similar, are like marriage, Many relationships can be activated. Watch out for taking on too much and taking things too far because the full moon squares Jupiter. On January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 4th house, and this could be the sign of innovation, transformation, forward momentum, external changes in the house of home, family, and living situation, especially if you felt like there was a lot of like inner restlessness and you felt ready for change. This could be the time. Like, for example, you know, the full moon in the 7th suggests that you decide to move in with your partner, and Uranus goes direct and you look for a place together. And if you'd like to know what January has in store for you, what other transits have in store, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Find out what 2024 has in store for you and get a yearly reading with me. It's currently discounted until the end of the month, until the end of January. You can also pick up a recorded horoscope in the shop section of my website to save even more. Lovely Pisces risings, Happy New Year, happy holidays. In December, you were quite focused on your professional life, as well as your networks and dreams, and maybe asking what your role in the collective is and what your desires are. Venus was in Scorpio, calling you to write, travel, study, teach, become the person who shares the knowledge, right? In January, you're still very much in the place of career, connections, networks, dreams, and there's also a focus on your mental health and spirituality as the Sun and Pluto enter your 12th house, calling you to release some outdating patterns and maybe bring something from your subconscious into the real world. So January starts off with Mercury going direct on the 1st of the month in your 10th house of career. And Mercury started the retrograde in the 11th in Capricorn and then went back into Sagittarius. And to me, that is suggestive of you questioning your dreams and questioning what you desire in terms of your future and, you know, what you want your role in the collective to be. And then perhaps those questions, or even questioning who can be a source of support, who can give decent advice. And then when Mercury retrograded into your 10th house, all of that kind of became even more professionally focused as you perhaps question what is it that you want to do. Mercury going direct on the 1st of the month can bring more progress, more insights, more answers when it comes to your career. It's also quite likely that you went back to something that you have thought you might not go back to, because the retrograde often takes us back to people we once knew, to jobs we once had, to jobs we once applied to potentially. You also have Venus in Sagittarius, your 10th house of career, until the 23rd of the month, and she's blessing you with better relationships at work, maybe more pleasure in the work that you're doing, more creative projects. Expect some tests on January 1st and 19th as Venus squares Saturn and squares Neptune. And this is just an invitation to be more realistic, I think, because Sagittarius is quite an idealistic sign, and it could be like, anything is possible. I can do this and I can do that, and I can be a model and I can be an influencer and I can be everything. And I'm not saying you cannot, but I'm saying Saturn on January 1st can invite you to sort of commit, sacrifice something, and be real about what is possible and what isn't. And the same Venus squaring Neptune on the 19th. Mars enters Capricorn, your 11th house, on January 4th. The Sun is here until the 20th. Mercury enters on the 13th and Venus enters on the 23rd. So your house of friendships, networks, dreams, and community is quite highlighted. And Mars always wants to fight with people or fight for people. So you might find yourself getting into more arguments with friends. It is an exalted Mars, so chances are you know what to fight for versus what is a waste of time. So it's more likely that I can see you fighting for a cause, right? Maybe spending more time volunteering, spending more time seeing friends, maybe fighting for a friend, helping them with something. You also have a new moon here on January 11th, and the new moon trines Uranus in the 3rd house, which is really interesting. I feel like the new moon in the 11th house on the 11th, 1111. If you're into angel numbers, please let me know what 1111 means, because I do not remember. I think it's new beginnings. Doesn't it mean new beginnings? So the new moon here in a trine to Uranus in the 3rd house. It's quite a good new moon. It suggests new beginnings related to your social role, right? Like 11th house is the larger world, 3rd house is your community. 3rd house is your knowledge, is your writing skills. So you are taking a different role, you are owning your skills, you may experience new beginnings connected to starting a business, to becoming a writer, to becoming a teacher, to, sort of kind of taking control of your skills. Around the same time, we also have Mars sextiling Saturn in the 1st house. So whatever it is that is changing, I think you are coming across as a grown-up. You are maturing, you're growing, and you're becoming the person who, instead of letting the world influence them, manipulates and changes their environment. So that's quite cool, quite fun, right? On January 20th, you have the Sun-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn in your 11th house. And that could bring some tension in your friendships. There could be some secrets, some shadows coming to light. Or it could be the time where you feel so focused on something that you want that you're either acting out of control or you're becoming clear on where you're too rigid, where you're too sort of fearful or too stuck, or like there might be patterns in your relationships and your dreams that are being exposed to you. And then right after that, the Sun and Pluto enter Aquarius, your 12th house. And the Sun will be here for a month, but Pluto will be here for 20 years. So no big deal, right? We will have like a brief intermission in September, October this year, but it's pretty much like a 20-year transit. And here you're looking at your mental health, you're looking at your self-defeating tendencies, and you're looking at your blind spot. And Pluto in the 12th will definitely make you be aware of the shadows and be aware of your escapist tendencies, right? It can empower you. Initially, it's likely going to like bring up difficulties. Pluto is not the easiest planet, but it wants you to, have control. It wants you to be in charge. So it can empower you through either releasing bad habits, or it can empower you through getting connected to your spiritual self, through becoming a healer, through becoming maybe a writer, through becoming a more spiritual person. Everything that's hiding and lurking in your blind spot, whether it's a negative habit or whether it's a passion that you're not acknowledging, will be brought up into the light and will need to be addressed. And we have had a preview of this between March 23rd and June 11th in 2023. Remember, 2023. Who remembers it when 2024 is right here? So please let me know how it went for you last year, if you noticed any of these topics of like mental health, spirituality, imagination, freedom from restrictions came up. On January 25th, we have a full moon in Leo, your 6th house, which completes the chapter started in mid-August when there was a new moon in Leo, and Venus retrograde in your 6th house. So the full moon in the 6th house can bring completion of a work project. If you have been, looking for a job since then, maybe now you find it. It can bring a change to your health. If you started struggling with something about 6 months ago, maybe around this time, you get control over it. There could be professional recognition. There could be a sense of accomplishment, maybe even like inner sense of reward, being rewarded, being happy with who you are. So it's quite like a happy full moon. Just make sure you're not overextending yourself, because there is a square to Jupiter in your house of scheduling. And you might just take on too much, trying to show everyone how like noble and stuff you are. On January 27th, Uranus goes direct in your 3rd house, and that could bring opportunities for outer change related to education, communication, writing, after you have done a lot of inner change. I think, 3rd house represents like everyday life. And with Uranus going direct here, there might be opportunities to reinvent, to innovate your everyday life, to add more kind of sparkle, maybe start a business, maybe start a writing project if you felt like you were stagnant and not ready to do that. Maybe even partner up or start something new with a sibling or a neighbor. And if you'd like to know what January and other transits have in store for you, become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. And you can also get your 2024 reading. It is currently discounted, and you can save with something with the coupons. You can save about $20 with the coupon codes down below, or you can save even more by purchasing a recorded reading in the shop section of my website. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Happy New Year's again. Happy holidays. I hope you had a beautiful December. I hope you're looking forward to January. I think there's a lot to look forward to. And if you haven't yet, pick up my 2024 planner to help you maximize the year to come. I will talk to you very soon. Bye.